You ever have one of those days where you're telling yourselves, look, I need to add to my backlog? So you decide to hop into Steam and you end up finding a game that just piques your interest? Gravity Circuit is that game for me. Now, bear in mind that this game does not come out until July 13th. So, in this demo version, you're given access to the tutorial and 2 missions. But I'll say this right off the bat, it only takes one mission for you to realize that this game has the potential to be something special. And if you're a Capcom fan who has been desperately waiting for another Mega Man game, this game right here may be the one that helps satiate your cravings. One of the first things you're going to notice about Gravity Circuit is that there's an emphasis on optimization. And this comes in the form of equipping booster chips and burst techniques. These booster chips help augment your abilities. They allow you to get a double jump. They make your grapple stronger. They give you iframes while you're dashing. They allow you to not take damage from environmental hazards. They allow you not to get staggered quickly. One of the things that I really enjoyed, because that type of customization is something that's really absent in a lot of Mega Man games. The other thing is that burst techniques allow you to take up this stored energy that you'll gain and apply it. It was essentially a super technique. And these come in the form of offensive and defensive abilities. Offensively, you can do certain things like a hurricane kick, a rising uppercut. You can also grapple an enemy and then do this crazy pile drive animation. Defensively, you can create this overshield around you, allows you to take at least one hit. You also have the ability to heal yourselves. I find that implementing this into the demo really gives players this idea that to separate itself from Mega Man and other games like it, that we want to help you optimize your character so that you can play the game the way you want. There really is an emphasis on speed in Gravity Circuit in comparison to the Mega Man games. Now, you still have to be fairly precise, but you are getting up close and personal with almost every enemy you take on, and that includes the bosses. The only weapon that you have available to you that would be considered a distance weapon is the grappling hook. And by the way, the implementation of the grappling hook is fantastic. Not only does the grappling hook help you gain speed when you're trying to navigate some of the more dangerous sections of a level, but you can also use it to actually attack enemies, whittle their health down, and then eventually grab them and throw them into other enemies. And it's also useful for picking up items that are just outside of your reach. Now, a lot of this does take time to acclimate to, because when I was navigating parts of this level, my brain immediately went, you do have a grappling hook. Don't forget that you have it, because there are certain sections where I'm sitting over spikes, over laser traps, and my brain goes, I can just double jump, which is completely not true. You're going to want to actually equip a chip to make you double jump. And there's even one chip that allows you to double jump and float, which, by the way, is a lifesaver, because it really helps you navigate some of the more difficult platforming sections in the game. Now, I don't know if that's going to be available to you right off the jump. If it was, I really feel like this game is going to be one of the more accessible Mega Man titles. I do feel like because you're able to switch around the boost chips and the techniques, you kind of have the ability to make this game as hard as you want. I really felt like on normal mode, the game was difficult, but with some of the chips that were available to me, I was absolutely spamming heal and just going all in and not having any type of strategy when taking on certain enemies. If you had any questions about the platforming, don't. This is one of those games that does a really good job of easing you into the platforming sections and then gradually making it harder and harder and harder until you get to that last part in which it actually is a challenge to get across the section, because if you're not precise in some of these jumps and you're not using the grappling hook as intended, you're more than likely gonna fail. Failure in Gravity Circuit feels like it's being handled differently than with its contemporaries, because in this game, if you fail, you just head back to a checkpoint. So death, I really feel, is something that is not too harshly punished. Now, this is on normal difficulty. I assume there's going to be options in higher difficulties in which if you die, you may have to restart an entire level just like Mega Man, but I feel like that would be kind of cheap, considering at no point in time during the demo did I ever pick up lives. So if that happens to change in the other difficulties, that's fine. I know that there are people out there who are going to want to challenge themselves in that manner, but I feel like in normal mode, you can go ahead and experiment, because when you go to these certain hidden sections, you're going to run into some pretty difficult platforming, and you're more than likely going to die just based off trial and error. And it's really frustrating if you happen to die, and then you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Now, as you kill enemies, you are gathering resources, and a lot of it is through money and also energy. And you'll notice that in the top left, you have this energy bar that consistently fills up until you have this excess energy stored. And that's when you can use that energy to complete a burst technique. Now, as it relates to money, the only use you could find for it in the demo is when you head to a checkpoint and you want to replenish your health. I assume there's going to be a store, and that's where you're going to be able to buy burst techniques and chips, because there's no way in hell that you're going to have access to all of these boost chips from the jump. I really feel like this is going to be one of those games in which you're going to want to visit the store as often as possible to help really optimize your character, which is something I appreciate. I really don't think you had to include all of the chips that were possibly available in this game to kind of show you just how much of an emphasis there is on customization and optimization, but I am glad that the developers decided to kind of show you that in this game, your build is really up to you, which is pretty cool. But I do wonder if there's going to be a store option at every checkpoint. So as you're gaining money, as you're gathering resources, you're able to convert that so that it really helps you when you're going up to fight some of the bosses. Now, when it comes to the bosses, I'm kind of mixed on them because I'm not a huge fan of their overall design, but I do like the fights themselves. And you're going to notice really quickly that the boss fights pretty much take inspiration from a lot of Mega Man games. So as you're scrolling through a level and you're going to notice that the overall theme, for example, let's say is lasers or lightning or fire, whatever, you're going to notice that that boss is going to emphasize pretty much a lot of what you've seen and implement it into the level. So the first boss you fight is named Cable, and this boss is honestly a nice, fun introduction to how the boss fights are going to work. In the demo, there are 2 phases for each boss fight, and that's indicated by their health bars. And as you're going through the fight, the first phase, I would say, is pretty manageable and pretty simple. Especially the first boss, Cable. I really feel like he's just not too difficult when you first get in there. He has a couple basic attacks. He'll shoot the ground sometimes to electrify it. He'll come up and try to shoot a burst attack. But for the most part, everything he does is pretty predictable and pretty manageable. When they jump into the second phase, however, this is when they start to really open it up on the player. So what Cable does is that he'll just start shooting beams up from the ceiling to help electrify multiple panels while also keeping you at bay with these burst shots. And I really feel like the one thing that I found really strange was that there's like moments of invulnerability with these bosses in which if I'm having to get up close and personal with them, I feel like that should not exist because I need to maximize my damage before they kill me. Regardless though, I really feel like Cable is just a nice introduction to the game as it is the first mission. If it's anything like other older Mega Man titles, you should be able to choose the boss you want to fight, and that really may depend on your skill level. I really feel like once you get into mission 2, the industrial area, that's when you kind of notice just how difficult the game can be. And I say this because they throw so many environmental hazards at you in this level, and there's some sections where there's just no place to land because there's lava, so you really have to get comfortable with your grappling hook. So if at any point in time you felt like the first level wasn't challenging enough for you, you really wanted more because you got excited that near the end of the level there was a bit more pace involved, I really feel like the industrial areas where you're going to get really excited for what the game has to offer in terms of that type of environmental challenge. Plus, I really feel that in comparison to the first level, the second level just has more uses for your grappling hook. There's an entire section in which you have to use it to navigate the area. And me being really dumb, I was kind of confused about whether or not the grappling hook was going to get cut as I'm trying to navigate these really small sections, but it doesn't. It's actually really fun trying to figure this out on your own. But let me tell you how confused I was when I was like, what is this doing? Like, how do I make this jump? Am I dead? Do I jump back on the platform and crouch? Because I feel like you do have just a little bit of leeway. But honestly, when I figured it out, I was like, okay, I was just being dumb and overcautious. Sometimes it's really fun to go with the flow of the game. Just playing these 2 missions really gets me excited for the full release. And what's really interesting to me is that first mission feels like a nice tutorial. Just allowing the player to get acclimated to the speed of the game and some of the differences that it has, because it does want you to emphasize melee combat. And that's fine. You can also sit back and use your grappling hook, but it's not going to do enough damage. It really wants you to get up close and personal and bring the fight to some of the other robots. The other thing is that when you play the second mission, and I'm serious when I say this, one of the things I love is just how they're just throwing all this crap at you. You have to dodge lasers, you have to break down barriers while you're dodging lasers, you have to dodge spikes, and you have to, most importantly, not fall in the lava. But here's the thing, I don't think that this game is punishing, because in a lot of these other types of Mega Man-esque games, you have like these moments where it really feels like you're being punished just for a misinput, and in this game it doesn't do that. So if you happen to fall in the lava, you happen to fall into a spike or a laser, the game just pretty much puts you on the nearest platform. And let's say, for example, you got really close and you missed that platform right in front of you. You have one of these moments where you're just like releasing that just anger, you know, that's angry sigh. Don't worry, because I've had moments where the game just puts me on the platform in front of me, didn't punish me for just missing it, which I honestly really enjoyed. Now this leads me to believe that Gravity Circuit is probably going to be one of the more accessible 2D side-scrolling Mega Man-like titles. I really feel that. Because how many games do you know have systems in place to really help the player in regard to misinputs and whiffs on these, really tight jumps? I really feel like there's not many that I can remember, but I find that they are always actively trying to assist you is something that I really appreciate, because there were moments in some Mega Man games where I was absolutely losing my shit because there was just a platforming section that required the most precise jump, and every time I missed it or if I got knocked off it, it'd be right to the beginning of the stage. And I feel like the fact that that's not here in Gravity Circuit and that there are abundant checkpoints, I feel like that to me creates a really enjoyable experience. And even though there's going to be questions about the accessibility, I'm fairly certain that there's going to be difficulty options in which you can play this game at its highest difficulty, in which you will be punished for just missing a jump or getting knocked off. So if you happen to be a sadist, don't worry. I'm certain that the higher difficulties are going to challenge you in the way that you actually want to be challenged. Speaking of challenge, let's show off the second boss fight. Now, I just want to remind everyone, I played really reckless here, so there are no strats involved. I was really just swinging wildly and tanking a bunch of hits. This is probably not going to be the way it goes when the actual full release happens, because I assume that these chips have to be bought in store, and by the time you get to the second boss, you're not going to have enough money. But I really enjoyed this fight, primarily because when you get to the second phase, he throws a frickin' hyper beam at you, and that shit was crazy and something that I did not expect. One of the things I've noticed, especially with some of the chip management and also with just the bosses in general, is that the first phase, the damage output by them, in my opinion, is pretty minimal. So I really feel like if you don't want to employ strats and just kind of play a little reckless, you can. But I will say, the moment you get into that second phase, it just really feels like the damage output of the boss goes up exponentially, to the point where even though I had emergency heal, I was kind of panicking because of just how much damage they were doing. So that's going to do it for this video. I really feel like if you want to scratch that Mega Man itch, I feel like Gravity Circuit is that game. I really want people to try it out for themselves. The demo is currently available on Steam. I do not know if it's out on other platforms, but if you happen to have a PC and you are looking for that Mega Man-esque game, Mega Man Zero type game, this is the game for you. If you happen to like the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. If you happen to play the demo of Gravity Circuit, please leave a comment below and tell me how you felt about it. I am Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I will talk to you next time.